to go. Welcome to all those members of the public watching this exciting meeting. It's quite a significant agenda. For those of you who've seen the hard copy, it's about 1,000 pages. Questions about who's read the whole thing, or at least recently. Some of it's been kicking around for a while. So we'll try and be orderly about it and stick to our time. The apologies for absence, Claire.
Thank you, Chair. I've received apologies from Councillors Easter, Bills, Brown, McLenning, Rowe and S. Blundell. Thank
you very much. No others. Urgent business. I don't think there's any urgent business. We've just got plenty of the normal stuff. Declarations of interest. Anybody got any declarations of interest? I thought I might have one because I worked for one of the companies that responded to the consultation on the SPD on renewables, SLR. But I haven't worked for them very recently, it was last year, on renewable energy. So I'll just mention that. Next item is minutes of the meeting from December the 15th, which is on page 8 of your agenda. Has anybody got any comments or corrections? Are we happy with those? Everybody happy? Right, those are agreed. Nods around the table. Chairman's announcements. So I've had a real fun last few days. The highlight must have been which was opening of the fairground at King's Lynn, which involved the entire chain gang plus a bishop going on the dodgems. You get more points for a bishop, as she told me. We prayed for the well-being of the travelling show people. And then a concert at the Norwich Showground with the Norwich Phil, which I would definitely recommend. There was the One Awards, where staff all got together on the 13th, last Friday. The Holocaust Memorial Day service was very, very good, actually. All sorts of people making meaningful contributions in Norwich. And before that, it was Panto time. And the only other announcement is to welcome a new councillor. Jonathan Pearl, is he here? How'd you do? Wyndham Central by-election. Next item is petitions. We don't have any of those, apparently, sadly. And then the next item is motions. Item 7. We have one motion from Councillor Gary Blundell about Article 4 directions for HMOs. Would you like to propose that?
Thank you, Chairman. Obviously, the motion, I think, is quite self-explanatory. HMOs do cause issues, especially in new estates, Cossey, Wyndham, Fingerford, because they don't need planning permission if they're under a certain number of residents living in each one. The issue we've got, especially on Queen's Hill at the moment, is multiple HMOs in a cluster. I believe there's 6 on one road, so you can imagine that's up to 25, 30 cars on one road. It restricts South Norfolk's own bin lorries getting down there, so I'm constantly getting messages about our bins being missed for cars being parked on very narrow roads. So I decided that a investigation motion for the Article 4 to mean that all HMOs would then need to come for planning permission. We can then look at how narrow the road is, what the parking situation is, are there any issues, and we can stop them being clustered all together. That's simply the reason. So I'm hoping that Council have had a chance to have a look at it and take it from there.
Thank you very much. Is there a seconder for the motion, please? Councillor Laidlaw, do you want to say anything now, or do you want to leave it till later?
I'll wait till the end. Thank you.
Has anybody else got any thoughts or comments about HMOs? Daniel?
Thank you very much, Chair, and I welcome the motion. It was actually something that I raised myself separately. Like Councillor Blundell, I represent an area on the edge of Norwich that has seen an exceptional growth in the number of HMOs. Now, HMOs absolutely have a place in our housing market. I lived in one myself for many years when I was a student, and for shortly after when I was saving up to buy my first house. But it is also absolutely true to say that too many HMOs concentrated in one area does have impacts for the other residents that live there. It does make parking, highways issues difficult. And when these areas were designed, they were designed as community areas. HMOs, by their definition, tend to be filled with people who are transient and do not necessarily lay down the same community routes. So I think it is appropriate for us to consider limits on the amount of HMO concentration that can occur in any individual area. We are proposing a small amendment, and the amendment is not to take away from the substance of the motion at all. It's simply to reflect that we'd already done some initial work on this by ourselves. So we're proposing to remove the reference to Broadland and add in a reference to area-specific or district-wide approach as appropriate, and with a focus on those areas that have a high number, distribution or concentration of HMOs, recognising that we've already sought some early views on this, and there is a view that were we to proceed, a specific Article 4 direction for the parishes of Cossey and Cringleford may be most appropriate. So that's our proposal, Chair. I have that in writing if we'd like to circulate it around the room.
Gary, are you happy with that amendment? Will you accept that into the motion?
Yes, Chairman, I have already discussed it with the leader. That's fine.
Okay, so that's an amended motion as Daniel's described. Jenny?
I just wanted to say I support this motion. I'm aware of the problems that are in Queen's Hills, and I'd particularly like to make reference to the problems that are in Bowthorpe, where it's near the university, where there's whole areas where it's just HMOs, and it destroys the community there. So that the number of HMOs really needs to be managed. And if we ever get a bus through Queen's Hill to the university, which I'm hoping we might eventually, that will also bring that problem to Queen's Hill. So it's urgent that we take this action now.
Consensus. Does anybody else have any thoughts or comments on the issue? No, I take it you don't need to sum up. Would you like to say anything, Terry? In summary? Yep. Terry? Yep.
Yeah, of course, seconding it, I obviously support this motion. Cossey has a concentration of HMOs that haven't required licensing because of their size and scope, but have caused neighbours to actually move house as a consequence of the impacts of that. So I do support the motion. Nothing against an individual HMO, but in some places clustering is definitely a problem. So I second the motion, or should I say I second the amended motion now? Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Well, can I see a show of hands for all those in favour of that motion as amended? Thank you very much. Unanimous? And all those, those are in favour. All those against? None against. I think that's unanimous. Any abstentions? No, I think that is unanimous. Okay, a bit of work to do on Article 4s. Thank you very much. So that takes us to item 8, which is the recommendations from the Cabinet meetings, 12th January, 9th of February, which is the meat of the agenda. Item 8A is the safeguarding policy. I think the report is page 20. And will be introduced by Councillor Minshall. Do you have a few words?
Thank you, Chair. Up until now, we've had a safeguarding protocol, which we're now looking to put into a full policy. And the first line in the policy is quite clear, and it says safeguarding is everybody's responsibility, and that is from councillors down through all staff. Everybody has a responsibility to put this into force. And it's basically, we've pulled together all of the protocols and policies that we had before into one policy to act across the council. The recommendation is there. I'll leave the rest to council, but happy to take questions.
Cool. Questions, comments, thoughts? All looks fairly sensible. Councillor Rosen.
Yes, without wanting to prolong this evening's proceedings, I just want to say thank you for doing this. And it's a really comprehensive review, and I think that we now have a really good and up-to-date safeguarding policy. So thank you.
Thank you very much. So the 7 golden rules on page 31 of your agenda, just for information for people to have a look at. Can I put the recommendations to the meeting that we adopt the safeguarding policy and delegate authority to the Assistant Director for Individuals and Families in consultation with the portfolio holder to make minor operational amendments as required on an ongoing basis. So be practical about it. All those in favour? Thank you very much. Anyone against? Any abstentions? That's carried unanimously. Thank you very much indeed. Item 8B is a meaty one. It's the adoption of the landscape susceptibility strategy in relation to energy generation, storage and transmissions, SPD. So that's the bulk of your agenda. It's this document here. It's been to us in draft, and I'd like to ask Councillor over to Neil to present the recommendations, please.
Thank you, Chair. You did well. It's a long title, this one. So this is the final, as you say, we saw the draft. This is the final. So it's actually South Norfolk landscape susceptibility in relation to energy generation, storage and transmission supplementary planning document, which I'll just refer to as an SPD. South Norfolk recently, as I'm sure you're all aware, has increasingly been finding ourselves receiving many energy-related, nationally significant infrastructure projects, as well as smaller ones. The NSIPs are decided by the Secretary of State. The smaller ones are dealt with as other planning applications, and we decide on those. Many of these projects are attracted to this area because of the close proximity to the Norwich Main, which is in the north of the district. So this SPD will provide clarity for developers and strengthen the council's position when responding to energy-related proposals, and we hope it will help to balance the need for renewable energy, but also protecting South Norfolk's valued landscapes. So, Chairman, there are 2 recommendations, and I hope members can support both of those. Thank you.
Has anybody got any thoughts, questions, comments, please? Yes. Absolutely.
Thank you, Chair. Very quickly, I would just like to say, as the councillor representing Hempnell Ward, where the large East Pye solar development is planned, I really welcome this SPD, and I especially note the money set aside to fund any legal challenges we might need to make in relation to this in the future. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Chair. Just one for Councillor Neil. Obviously, we had a meeting, we had DMC this morning, where ironically there was a BESS on that which raised issues. I've had a look through, I can't find it, but then there's a lot to read through on this. Are we covering an issue that was raised this morning in regards of making sure there's regular controls on monitoring water from attenuation from battery drainage water?
I don't believe it's in this document, as this is more about the landscape and trying to protect our, as we often get a lot of people complaining about they're losing farmland for food production and things like that. So I don't think that will be found in this document, but it is something I believe I've asked officers for us to have some more training on that, because I think it would be helpful for all members would be invited to it, not just DMC members, to have a bit more information on the battery storage plants and how that sort of works.
Yes, thank you, Chair. In terms of battery energy storage systems, as I understand it, that fire service are often asked to go and have a look at these at the beginning, and they will check the attenuation basins because there's supposed to be a certain amount of water kept on site. But once they've done that inspection, there is no right of access to those sites ever again, unless the people who own them actually allow it. This is something that we ought to be asking developers to give us the right to check them, certainly from a planning point of view, or if not, to allow the fire service access to them. It's one of the things that's really missing in all of this, that they can set them up okay, but there's no guarantee that they will maintain them in that way. And if there is an incident, there won't be any high pressure water main nearby for them to be able to put them out with, so we need that water on site.
Sounds more like an operational monitoring condition rather than a landscape issue. Has anyone else got Councillor Webber?
Yeah, I'd like to thank previous two councillors for making excellent contributions, if not entirely relevant. But it is great to see this paper come forward for adoption. It's excellent. And I was really pleased to see the extremely thorough, or at least at first glance, I'm going to read it properly, the extremely thorough treatment of landscape issues in the paper on the best this morning's DMC. So I think it's a real step forward, and congratulations to all involved.
Councillor Wateridge?
Yeah, it's working now. Yeah, equally think this is a great piece of work. Really happy that part of my ward, the Great Moulton Farm and Plateau, was also addressed as part of it. The only thing I would say is, I think a point that somebody else has made as part of the consultation, it only covers BESSes that are quite small, I think up to 50 megawatts. I've got a BESS in Great Moulton, which is going to be 400 megawatts. I just wondered if Councillor Overton Neil could just confirm. I think it says in the notes here that you've commissioned consultants to include an additional assessment to specifically addressing the higher voltage storage schemes. Is that forthcoming, or do you know how long that will take? Thank you.
Sorry, I'll just ask you to sum up at the end, if that's okay. Councillor Rosen?
I was just going to point out that there was that comment on page 50 of the documents around that further piece of work for larger battery energy storage systems. But I would also like to say that, you know, we do need, as a council, to support and play our part in enabling the country to get to net zero and making sure we have reliable, secure energy supplies. And I think this document strikes a good balance between enabling us to play our part in that and also protecting our Norfolk landscapes where necessary. So I'll be supporting this document.
Any other contributions on this topic? Can I ask you to sum up, Lisa, and take up that point from Councillor Wateridge?
Yeah, I'm going to answer the question that was asked. I will find out for you, because I don't know the details on the larger ones, but I would assume that it would be, as they're such large NSIPs, we call them the nationally strategic ones that are decided by the Secretary of State, it would be required that they have to do a bespoke landscape plan for it, which would include that. But I'll find out more for you, and then if that's okay, I'll email you. Thank you.
Okay, can we put the recommendations to the vote, please, that we adopt the strategy, the SPD, and sign off any minor amendments? All those in favour? Thank you very much. All those against? Any abstentions? That's unanimously carried. Thank you very much indeed. Enlargement of the agenda. Item 8C is the adoption of the implementation of the Norwich Green Infrastructure Strategy, SPD. Councillor Overton Neil.
Thank you, Chair. So this is another SPD. This is the final implementation of the Greater Norwich Green Infrastructure Strategy, supplementary planning document. This SPD has been developed jointly with Norwich City Council following a 6-week public consultation, and it will apply across the 3 Greater Norwich councils, Broadland, Norwich and South Norfolk. The SPD is primarily to be used by developers when designing and proposing new developments, and development management officers in the determination of planning applications, and it will ensure high quality green infrastructure projects are delivered. So once again, Chairman, you've got 2 recommendations in the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Run out of steam already. Can I put the recommendations to the vote then? All those in favour of adopting this SPD? Thank you very much. And all those against? Any abstentions? That's unanimously carried. Thank you very much. Item number 8D is the adoption of the Greater Norwich Local Plan. Policy 2, Sustainable Communities Supplementary Planning Document. This is a slightly broader topic. Councillor Overton-Neal to introduce.
Me again. Yes, I'd say we have another supplementary planning document. You may wonder the reason why suddenly these have all appeared. The government have advised that no new SPDs can be adopted after the 30th of June this year. So therefore, we've been working hard on getting these through. So this one is for sustainable communities, and it supports policy 2 of the Greater Norwich Local Plan. It is the same as the previous item, where it was being prepared jointly with Norwich City Council and got out to public consultation, and will apply, as was said, to the 3 Greater Norwich councils. The SPD detailed guidance ensuring that planning applications are accompanied by the required supporting statements to promote sustainable communities. And the recommendation, as previously, there's 2 for members to look at.
Does anybody have any questions or comments about this one? No, you're getting off lightly there. Oh, can I see all those in favour of adopting this SPD, please? Thank you very much. And all those against? No. Any abstentions? That is unanimously agreed. Thank you very much indeed. That's item. Right, the next one is the Greater Norwich 5-year infrastructure investment plan. Annual growth programme. This is actual stuff happening rather than just policy. Again, Councillor Overton-Neal.
This one is being covered by Councillor Elmer.
Oh, pardon me.
It's okay. The councillor's got slopey shoulders at the second.
I think everybody's fed up with my voice now.
As you know, this is a document that comes back to us fairly frequently. The most important things to note in the document are the drawing down of the remainder of the Norwich City deal funding. This has effectively allowed us to flip over some existing money and top the GNDP pot back up for next year, and also to note for us specifically the drawdown of 1.1 million from the Greater Norwich Development Partnership to help fund the Framlingham Sports Centre upgrade, alongside the money that South Norfolk is also investing in it. So definitely a positive news story for Framlingham, Poor England and the wider area there.
Thank you very much. So that's page 672 is the interesting bit, which has got the actual projects listed. Any questions, comments, thoughts on this paper? Only the one project in South Norfolk, but it's the biggest one, so that's all right. Yes, please, Councillor Overton.
Can I just say as a local member that we welcome the 1.5 million for the Framlingham project. Thank you.
People are allowed into your ward to go and use it. Anybody else? Right, well, I'll put the recommendations to the vote. Can I see all those in favour of approving the 5-year plan? Thank you very much. Anybody against, please? Thank you. And any abstentions? That is unanimously agreed. That's item 8E. Thank you. Agenda item 8F on page 778 of your agenda is the draft of the South Norfolk Health and Wellbeing Partnership Strategy. Now, I don't know if this is a draft or a final version. This is Councillor Carsock to introduce, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so this is the updated draft of the Health and Wellbeing Partnership Strategy. So the Health and Wellbeing Partnership is a group of multiple agencies. So we have our District Council as one of the kind of chief partners involved, County Council, we have public health representatives, adult social care, children's services, we have people from the ICB, and a number of smaller organisations like Age UK, Mind, Citizens Advice, Youth Services, and lots of smaller ones as well. So the invitation remains open to anyone who is working with any of these agencies who might like to get a little bit more involved. We've updated the strategy through a series of workshops, talking through the action statements which were in the strategy from before, and trying to make sure that we can actually deliver projects which make a difference in the community. So at the moment we've gone out, for example, on a call for proposals to work on preventing dementia. So, for example, offering free hearing tests in the community to people who might think they don't want to trouble anyone with issues with hearing, which can be a link towards developing dementia in the future. So we've got all sorts going on in there. Our focus areas where we have working groups that develop projects include the Access and Prevention Group, Mental Health, and the Health and Resilient Communities, which is doing a lot with youth work and nutrition and exercise programs. So hopefully the council will join me in endorsing this proposal. It's still a draft because it has to go to all the different partners as discussed, and then it will be finalised and signed off. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we'll adopt this version and hope that other people don't amend it. Unlikely, fair enough. Any questions, comments? Coming.
Hi. On page 787, it says that 64% of adults over the age of 18 are overweight and 18% or obese, and 18% of year 6 children are obese. And I just wondered whether there was a place for a more specific statement addressing this, because in the priorities it says things like to understand and address the barriers that people face when it comes to accessing food and making healthier food choices. And I wondered whether there should be a specific statement as of a priority to directly address overweight and obesity in the area.
Any other questions or comments, please? Yes, Councillor.
Yes, could I just ask, we've got quite a lot of uncertainty amongst provider organisations at the moment, partly caused by uncertainty about the future of the council. And you talked about there being a revised strategy driven by new data. Can you indicate whether that's likely to lead to any changes in the pattern of service delivery and whether that might impact particular providers? And if so, what are we doing to help those organisations transition through that?
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Carsock, can I ask you to respond to those?
In terms of Councillor Rosen's question, I think it's hard for the partnership to keep focus. So what we're not there to do is plug funding gaps in other services. So it's very tempting in many meetings to be like, people can't get a GP appointment. What are we going to do about that? But that's not actually what the partnerships are there for. They are the part of the health service which is specifically focused on prevention work. So to some extent we will be doing projects with organisations who would like to do more but don't have the funding to do it. And sometimes we can do that, and it is very much an evidence-based process where we bring in data, for example the LIFT data, is it low-income family tracker data we're using to proactively target social prescribing into certain households. So we do that, but we can't be used as a funding body to plug gaps in other organisations, which is the much larger health budget should be doing. In terms of the specific action statement on child obesity, we are one and the same in finding this really important and wanting to have that explicitly put there. There was a lot of discussion around that action statement that you've picked up on, and language and stigma and people wanting to be really careful about how we worded the action statements. So I know, I totally agree with you, but it's a partnership process. And I can assure you that there are absolutely projects which are specifically looking to address child obesity. And we actually have some specific funding from another pot left over that we are going to direct into that as well.
The add-ons, because the shocking thing was the 64%.
It is absolutely shocking, the 66%, and there's a number of different nutrition and exercise programs that we're literally just meeting about prior to this meeting. So it absolutely needs to be addressed. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Can I see all those in favour of adopting this strategy, please, from South Norfolk Council, passing on to our partners? Thank you very much. Thanks, most people. Is there anybody against? Any abstentions? That's unanimously agreed. Thank you very much, everybody. Which takes us to the finance report for Q3. This is page 792 of your agenda. Can I ask Councillor Elliott to introduce it, please?
Thank you, Chair. This is our Q3 finance report. It's a balanced appraisal of the in-year financial position at Q3, which would be the end of December. It sets out our prudent actions to ensure we finish the year on a stable footing. You'll see in section 2 that under revenue, the cost of core services forecasts are predicting a favourable variance of just over £1 million, £1.045 million, roughly equating to 5% of our budget on the cost of core services. You'll see under section 2.2 that as of the end of December, on our capital programme, we'd spent just over £27 million on those capital schemes within the financial year. You'll also note that in addition to endorsing the revenue and capital position, we're strengthening the planning appeals reserve by £250,000, and Cabinet also has recommended two specific actions for Council this evening. The first is to bring forward £61,000 from next year's IT devices replacement programme, and this is to avoid an imminent price rise. We'll obviously only spend that if that price rise has not already occurred. And also creating a provision for Beckett's Chapel project in Windham, which would be subject to further grant funding being secured. And those are steps that are measured and time sensitive, and they both protect value for money and project deliverability. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. £61,000 worth of new laptops. Yeah. Any questions, comments, thoughts on the budget? Everybody happy? Well, unmoved? No, I think we've got away lightly there. The recommendations are to endorse the position, set aside £250,000 into the planning appeals reserve, and then yes, to set aside £61,000 for new IT, providing there hasn't been an increase in price, which I guess hasn't happened. Do we know? We're going to go ahead with that.
So to provide a little bit of detail, that recommendation is in there to beat a price rise in the new financial year.
So we'll do it before the new financial year. Yep, good. And the Beckett's Chapel, £250,000. That's exciting. Everybody agree? Can I see all those in favour? Thank you very much. Can I see everybody against? Nobody. Can I see abstentions, please? That is unanimously carried. Thank you very much indeed. We're doing well. I was going to ask if people wanted a break, because if you absent yourself during part of the item on the budget and the finance, then you won't be able to vote on any of it. But we're doing well. People have got the stamina. Should we just plough on? Yes? Right. So we've got the budget as a whole. That's down to you, Councillor Elmer. So, On the basis that you might want to speak more than 5 minutes, is this going to happen? I've been asked to suggest that we suspend standing orders to allow people to speak for more than 5 minutes, up to 10. Just the group leaders of each group. Are we happy with that? Are people prepared to suspend standing orders? Is there a second of that dubious motion? Councillor Cross is seconding it. Are we in favour of allowing ourselves to receive more information this way? Yes? Everybody happy? Thank you very much. All those in favour? All those against? I've got stamina. Any abstentions? Right, we'll suspend standing orders just for that purpose. Councillor Elmer.
Thank you, Chair. For the record, my commitment when I became leader was simply to speak for at least 1 minute less than John did at any given budget speech. And I shall endeavour to stick to that. Slightly depressingly, I did write a joke to tease Chris with at the start, but I won't get to use it today. However, it has become something of a joke between Richard and myself, how every year we get to Q3, Rodney produces his finance report and we get to congratulate ourselves on our budget surplus, and well, it's happened again, so good stuff. But on a genuine point, it is due to prudent spending and the investments we make as a council. The £1 million this year has allowed us to put another 250k into a reserve to match our new environmental landscape SPD. It's allowed us to put money aside to support match funding for a new economic project in Wymondham, and I'm sure there will be other proposals coming forward later tonight for some of the balance of that surplus. But this year we have had a little bit of comeuppance for the self-congratulation. We've always been a pro-growth council. We've always believed in investing in homes and generating jobs, and we've often drawn a nice dividend for ourselves and the taxpayer in the process of that. So when New Homes Bonus was removed, when we knew business rates were going to be reset, we knew that would be painful. But in spite of that, we've been able to present a budget that is again resilient, that is again balanced. And we are continuing to propose tax rises that overall leave us 30% below inflation since we took control of this council, and continue to be below inflation today. What we're not expecting this time, though, was the last-minute shock. We are used to changes between the provisional and final settlements. This year, the scale of that shock has caught us somewhat off guard, and the net result of it is that for the next 2 years, we are going to be £1 million worse off than we were the day this budget went through Cabinet, and that is a material change. I've always been very clear that it doesn't fit in with my value system to allow us to draw on reserves to fund day-to-day spending, and I will absolutely stick by that. So as soon as this budget is over, we will begin the process of identifying £1 million of either efficiencies or even better income opportunities to plug that gap. My predecessor always used to say that it's always better to earn £1 than save £1, and we will continue to live by that ethos if at all possible. I'll also take a moment to make a small political pop, because it's nice and easy. There are some political groups who aren't represented in the chamber today, who like to make some promises they can't keep, and we're seeing that in a number of authorities across the country at the moment. Now, we don't do that. I'm not going to go out there and say we're never going to raise council tax. We believe here in clear, honest and reasonable pricing, and that's why we've stuck by a clear £5 increase each year. That's below inflation. It's below what we could raise it if we went by the percentage maximum. And I think it represents value for our residents, and it represents us being honest with the electorate as opposed to making false promises that we can't deliver. It also allows us to continue delivering services in a very efficient manner, and it allows us to continue investing in our staff as well as our residents, and I'm pleased to say that we remain a real living wage employer. But moving on to our residents, where money has been stripped away, we've stepped in this year. We've lost the shared prosperity funding, So we're allocating 90,000 to our business builder programme to support startups across South Norfolk. We're putting 100,000 into the Building Futures programme to ensure that apprenticeships continue to be rolled out, making sure that people that grow up in South Norfolk have the opportunity to grow their careers in South Norfolk. And yes, due to our investments in housing, hopefully go on to buy a house here, settle down and build their families here. You'll know in previous years we've allocated money to a new investments at the Norwich Research Park, and the Grow On Centre there will continue to help create the next generation of high-tech biotechnology startups in our area. And this year we're also putting aside money to create a new local development order at Heffel to ease the transition of pressures the Lotus situation is creating there and ensure that advanced manufacturing remains a major hub in South Norfolk. This is a council that will continue to invest in economic growth because we know that is the route to future prosperity for residents in South Norfolk. Growing incomes, better jobs, more cash in the pocket. But our biggest investments this year aren't into the economy, they're into our local communities. Every year, for years, we've seen the CAF fund oversubscribed, and each year we've put forward proposals to increase it by 50k, 100k, occasionally I think even by 150k. This year we're not going to increase it from 50k to 150k, we're not going to increase it to 200k. This year we're going to times it by 10 and increase it to 500,000. And we're not just going to do that. At the same time, we're going to introduce a new community facilities grant, so there'll be a clear delineation. If you want to invest in upgrading a new centre in South Norfolk, an existing centre in South Norfolk, you can go to the community facilities grant. And I have to say, this was done in collaboration with Mike and Chris, and credit goes to all group leaders for this. If you want to deliver something new, you can go to the CAF fund, and you'll have a better chance than ever of success as part of that. At the same time, we're doubling the members' allowances. So there'll be 2k for every single one of us to dish out to those small projects that are very important to our communities. And we're going to allow the rollover of funds from this year, taking the total up to 3k. At the same time, we're bringing in the new In Bloom fund to ensure that our towns and villages have immediate visible impact, and we get to see the benefits of wildlife at the heart of our communities. Collectively, these projects represent an amazing new breadth of ambition that should touch into every single village in South Norfolk. Now, those are what we're doing across the area, but we do have some specific ones we want to talk about as well. You'll know that we reviewed the depot project earlier in the year, and that has freed up some significant capital resources. It's my intention, as I've always said, to ensure those resources are ploughed back into South Norfolk as soon as possible. So I'm pleased to announce today 2.7 million for the Ketts Park project in our largest town, Wymondham. This will help leverage in over £1 million of external funding and double the footfall visiting the site. This is a massive win for Wymondham. It's a massive win for recreation and a massive win for sports provision in the largest settlement we have. And I'm also pleased to say, on top of that, we'll be creating a new place fund. Now, there are a variety of projects I expect to see come forward for this, but it's fair to say I intend for these to be earmarked for those communities that have seen some of the most growth and feel they haven't necessarily had their share. So I fully expect to see a project for new community spaces in Poor England come through. I expect to see money put aside for Cringleford Country Park, where there's money already put aside to support Loddon. And yes, it's Coss's time as well, I think. So this is all done on top of the amazing capital programme we already have. Our new leisure facility in Diss, the expansion of Framingham Earl, Wymondham Public Realm, our new infrastructure at Heffel, and of course, and not least, the new doctor's surgery at Heverset. Now, Councillor Laidlaw will rightly hold me to account for our ability to actually spend our money. So, possibly most of all, I am pleased to say that we are on track for the end of this financial year to have spent down 35 million of the capital programme, with another 22 anticipated in the next year. I will confess, Terry, you were right. Spending money is harder than I thought, but we seem to be managing it. I want to thank all the staff who've worked long and hard on this, the opposition group leaders, and the scrutiny committee for their constructive engagement, but most of all to Richard and Rodney, who do all the work that I then go on to take the credit for. So with that, I commend the budget to you.
Thank you very much indeed. Any questions, comments? Richard, do you want to second that?
I'm very happy to second that, Chair, and I think I have an opportunity to say a few words at this point, although not 10 minutes. Just Daniel has outlined very clearly, I think, what this budget means for this council. I'll just perhaps fill in one or two of the technical gaps in a few minutes on both the revenue and capital budget, just so that you have access to some of those figures. First thing to say, of course, the revenue budget is a balanced budget, which is important despite very challenging national funding landscapes, which Daniel already mentioned. I think it's fair to say that whilst the settlement was a shock and then a double shock, the thing that we do welcome is the 3-year finance settlement, giving a more kind of secure and stable way of planning our resources over the next 3 years. But as Daniel's already mentioned, we will now need to find ways to absorb those inflationary pressures. It does mean our core spending power in real terms has seen quite a big reduction. The key cost pressures that we will need to be looking towards, of course, homelessness, which continues to be an issue for us, with temporary accommodation predicted to continue rising. Waste services, as you know, that the food waste provision will be a new requirement for us, with those rollout costs falling on us in the next financial year. And some unknowns really around staffing costs. We know that we've put aside 3.5% for staff pressures, but those are always difficult to predict, and we will need to absorb any additional costs that we might see there. Despite those pressures, reserves remain above recommended levels, as commented on by the 151 officer. So, well, we're coming on to the council tax, but Daniel's already mentioned that. I suppose it's also just worth mentioning at this point, the budget does accept and take into account the real uncertainty currently around local government reorganisation, and of course it may require future adjustments. We'll just have to wait and see on that. Overall, I think the revenue budget reflects prudent financial management. It protects those priority services, and it provides early planning for any structural change. Moving to the capital programme very quickly, a total of £53.7 million, which of course are aligned to the council's strategic priorities. The funding comes from that mixture of grants, reserves, capital receipts, and limited borrowing, just to ensure the programme remains affordable and sustainable. I won't go into the investments. I think Daniel's outlined them in great detail, but the strategy stresses the importance of long-term asset planning, particularly in light of the council's ageing estate and ongoing ICT investment needs. So overall, in conclusion, I'd just like to say the capital programme, aims to improve those community facilities. It, of course, supports and continues to support economic development in the district and invests in that essential infrastructure while maintaining prudent limits on borrowing. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Just to remind colleagues that we're discussing the revenue budget and the capital strategy and budget and the treasury management strategy all together, but we will need to take separate votes on those in due course. And they'll have to be recorded votes. I'd like to invite Councillor Laidlaw to contribute next, please.
Oh, sorry. Okay, my fault. Thank you. I'd like to echo the thanks for the officers once again for producing a revenue budget which is again in balance, albeit with a further £5 increase in council tax, but I feel this is totally understandable given the gaps that we see in the next 2 years by the projections of reduction in financial support. So Chris Brown, who is leader of the Liberal Democrat group, and I'm standing in for him this evening, sends his apologies for his absence at this half-term time. However, he is here in spirit, having sent me the following statement, which I would like to read on his behalf, if I may. So council budget points he makes. Relatively good position this year, despite last-minute government funding changes. Future years now look particularly difficult though, so we support the need to increase council tax as proposed. With reorganisation on the horizon, we need to ensure that we hand over a council in as good a financial position as possible, so our residents continue to receive the service they expect and that they deserve. On the subject of capital spending, this is Chris, not me, we are pleased to see the opportunities to fund projects across our district and to leave a legacy from this council that are included. The investments in our leisure services, such as in Diss and Framingham Earl, will make a big difference. The new community facilities grants and additional CAF funds will support essential facilities and projects in parishes right across the district of a sensible size. On the projected underspend for this year, we are looking to ask for funding for additional youth services in 2 parts, but particularly if I can find it, the £30,000 to a couple of parishes to pump prime a longer term project, which is match funded by the Parish Town Council to extend the service for at least a further 2 years. This builds on similar collaborative work with Long Stratton Town Council and with Cossey Town Council. Indeed, speaking as a councillor in Cossey, we certainly have that project well underway, and we're looking to go beyond the standard youth services and youth club type services and into mentoring and support for young people, which should lead to reduction in antisocial behaviour, which we do have in Cossey. So on that projected youth project work, and also rural transport improvement funding, this from Chris, we have some great community transport operators such as BACT and Border Hopper, which provide a range of essential transport services across a large part of our area, including from Diss to Loddon, Hempnell to Harleston, Gillingham to Brook and Dishingham to Haddiscoe. To continue and extend these services, new accessible vehicles are needed, as well as other support and volunteers. This funding can make a huge difference to these rural communities. I think I understand that in this part I should be asking for an amendment to approve those items, although I'm surprised that Daniel did not include that for his group, I think. But let me continue. So later on, I'm not going to raise them now, but my colleagues will have a couple of amendments to put forward when it comes to general discussion. Councillor Webber will talk to the revenue and capital budget, and Councillor McConnell will talk to the Treasury strategy. So with regard to the capital programme, We are very pleased to see the elements investment in community open spaces, which 2.25 communities and open spaces, which the leader has referred to. I am indeed pleased that Cossey is seeing a little piece of this action. We have felt a little left out with the tendency in South Norfolk to look at the market towns, and we tend to be a little bit forgotten in terms of being a fringe of Norwich. We also are pleased to see the Communities Facilities Grant at £500,000 being included. We look forward to the capital programme being achieved. You'd be surprised if I was not going to mention that, since that seems to be my reputation, so that it looks achievable to me, and it is not, if you like, a purely aspirational list of projects that happen to be on the agenda at any point in time. So I think you would all be surprised if I didn't at least say that in support of the capital budget. So I'll close again by thanking staff for their hard work, and in particular, as has already been mentioned, Rodney and Richard, and Daniel as well, our leader, for taking this time to take us through the thinking behind the budget, and also at the recent scrutiny meeting, which I was proud to be a member of. So do I now need to form a formal amendment?
Yeah, we definitely need to know exactly what you're proposing as an amendment. So you can be absolutely crystal clear so that we know what you're suggesting.
So I think this is available to the officers already.
It needs to be available to everybody, I think, to vote on it.
Let me read it out. That Council creates the following new budgets for the financial year 26-27. 35,500 for youth services to provide a holiday activity club for up to 420 children, and which would be complementary to the Council's kids camp. £60,000 to expand youth support by offering 30,000 to 2 parishes to pump prime a longer term project, which is match funded by the Parish Town Council to extend the service for at least a further 2 years. This builds on similar collaborative work with Long Stratton Town Council and Cossey Town Council. And thirdly, £100,000 to set up a rural transport improvement fund to work with local community transport providers to extend or enhance essential rural transport service provision within South Norfolk. These new items to be funded by allocating some of the current year underspend. Do I have a seconder for that? That's my proposal.
I'm happy to second.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Is that amendment accepted by the proposer?
I'm happy to accept the amendment.
Councillor Rosen.
Yes, I have.
Excellent. Right, thank you. We're good to go. So, yes, thank you, Daniel. Once again, I think that the budget process has been a model of what can be achieved with a constructive approach to politics, particularly in a council where the balance of power is so finely balanced and where different political parties are represented. And I think we represent the voters' wishes in that. And I think what we've done is what voters would want us to do, which is to get together and consider the best way of meeting residents' needs with the money we have available. And I think on that general principle, we've done a really good job of this. I think that I appreciate that there's been some uncertainty. We've got the LGR, we've got late change to settlements. And so I think it is, again, a tribute to previous financial management of the council and the contribution that all of us have made over the last few years when things have been changing quite rapidly, that we are once again in this resilient position, and that in year we're doing well enough to have an underspend. I think that I really want to just highlight a few of the things that I think from the Labour perspective are particularly things that we care about and we're really pleased to be included. So really support the proactive approach we're taking to tackling homelessness. I mean, this has been a priority for us ever since we were elected in 23, and absolutely great response in terms of prevention, not just tackling rising homelessness. But I do know that we've got a help hub that does a lot of work to try and prevent people becoming homeless in the first place. And I think that really needs to be credited, and it's something I'm sure we'll try to preserve in the future. I'm pleased that this budget enables that to happen. I'm pleased that we're taking a responsible attitude to our extended obligations on waste. I know when this grant first came in, it was not ring fenced, and there was a temptation to go and spend it on a bunch of lovely things that would have been possibly immediately more pleasurable. But actually, you know, waste is a really big issue for our communities. We've got some really big advantages that can be done, and you know, I do hope, Councillor Hooton, that you get the opportunity to really extend our services and make sure that our largely rural communities are kept in the state we want them to be, and that people in our urban communities receive the currently good service in terms of getting rid of waste. So I think that's, again, pleased to see that budgeted well. I'm proud of the fact that we're funding our leisure centres still. We are one of the few districts that actually do manage our leisure centres directly, and I think that is something to be proud of. I think we're also proud of the way they are truly inclusive and open to all, and we've made sure that our lower income families can continue to access our leisure facilities. And I think, again, you know, as we move forward into LGR, that is something that this council can be really, really proud of, and I hope we'll be able to take that forward into whatever new entity we become part of and make sure that we are maintaining that. I think as well it's fantastic that we've managed to provide the opportunities we are now providing for our communities to take a direct part. You know, a lot of talk about devolution, hasn't there? And actually we are, in this budget, achieving some real devolution down to our communities with the amount of extra money we're putting into the CAF fund, the fact that we're expanding the members' allowances, and I particularly welcome the community facilities grant. I think any of us that have been had the pleasure of campaigning across our district and have visited village halls, community facilities, we've seen where polling takes place. We know that there are a host of buildings in our district that could do with better catering facilities, better toilets, nicer floors, nicer furniture. And I think that this is a really good use of this fund, that I hope it's taken up. I hope it's taken up by those communities in particular where we're not making the other investments. I look forward to people like Harleston or Long Stratton, those places saying, oh, there's a piece of that. Let's get our community facilities really nice and make sure that's something we can enjoy for the next 10, 15, 20 years. Because I think that would be a really good legacy for this council. And I think credit to Daniel and Rodney for helping us work out how to do it. And thank you very much for taking on board our enthusiasm for that particular proposal. Really pleased to see all the the extra capital things. I think that it's absolutely right. There's been lots and lots of talk about population growth and how that's not matched by matching improvements in infrastructure. Really pleased to see about the surgery in Heatherset. Really pleased to look at the investment in leisure in Poringland. Cringleford, Cossey has been long needing some investment. So I'm really pleased to see all that well-balanced support for those things. We do have an amendment, and it relates really to two things that we've looked at. And firstly is something called the Disabled Facilities Grant. And actually that is one of the few areas of overspend in this year's current budget. The Disabled Facilities Grant, we think, is a really important piece of work this council does, because it helps prevent homelessness, it helps prevent people going into care, it enables disabled families to remain in their home, disabled people can remain in their home, and the emotional value of that, the way that contributes to mental health, not being a burden on our other services, not requiring things from other bits of the council. I think that this is a grant that we are very happy to support an additional sum of money going into to make sure that we can meet the needs of those members of our community. We're also going to look at the issue of the domestic abuse provision in the county. South Norfolk was one of the pioneers at supporting a partnership across the county, and I think we can be proud of that. The partnership is NIDAS, which is the Independent Advisory Service. Its future has looked a little bit rocky over the last few months, but I'm really pleased that as a council we've confirmed there's funding for it in the 26-27 financial year. And so as part of our amendment, we would like to make sure that in order to support this service across the transition, across LGR, that we've set aside some money to make sure that this council can continue to fund that. That's pretty much what I want to say. If my laptop will now come back to life, it's conveniently decided to stop just as I was about to read the amendment.
Do you have figures for that?
Yes, the amendment is really clearly written, so clearly that we agreed earlier with the monitoring officer it did not need to be printed. So hopefully that won't be a problem for anyone. So our amendment is that Council creates the following new budgets for the financial year 2026 to 27. One, an additional £150,000 to the Disabled Facilities Grant, and two, £50,000 to an earmarked reserve to ensure continuation of South Norfolk District Council funding for NIDAS in financial year 2027 to 28. These new items to be funded by allocating some of the current year underspend.
Thank you. Is that amendment agreed?
I'm happy to accept the amendment, Chair.
Do we have a seconder for that? Yes. Councillor Cork. And that's accepted by the proposer, so that's all wrapped up into the main motion. Right, any other questions or contributions or thoughts? Councillor Fuller.
Thank you very much. I missed out on the last one, so I'll have a go this time.
Only five.
But, I mean, look, this is the big event. Setting the budget is what we get elected to do. And this is just another astonishing budget, astonishing for all the right reasons, I should say, and probably unique or nearly unique of all the 1973 districts. So many of the districts, cathedral cities, were endowed with huge property portfolios when they sort of converted from the county boroughs in 1973. We've had to dig our own success, and this is just a remarkable thing. I mean, the capital programme of the last 2 years looks like a Cook's tour. I know John Cook's to my right. There's a Cook's tour of South Norfolk. Loudon, Long Stratton's got a bypass, Diss, huge investment there. Easton's had a village hall, Porrigan a new leisure centre, Heather's had a doctor's surgery. Cossey, huge investments there. Cringleford, the Jubilee Centre. I mean, what an astonishing list of investments. And now we've got more through this community investment fund as well. You know, we can absolutely have our heads held high. In Diss, there was a question earlier about obesity. Well, for goodness sake, we've just invested millions of pounds in a new swim centre. Not just for kids, although our swim school is a model of its type. It's leisure for, and fitness for adults as well as the country park and things like that to encourage people to have active and healthy lifestyles. I'm surprised no one's mentioned the investments about the Roundwell. I think that's something we can be really proud of, frankly. It was let to rot for too long, and we're putting that right. And that's something which, again, once again, I think we can leave our held high. I mean, obviously, we've had a stroke of luck. The important improvements in the investment in the local government pension scheme have given us, you know, quite a good there. And I'd like to think I played a hand in that. When I first went on the board of the Norfolk Pension Fund, we had £1.8 billion invested. We've now got over £6 billion. And I'm the longest person who sat on that, so I think I've probably earned my money on that. But nevertheless, it's given us that tuck because, my goodness, we've put into the pension fund for the last few years, over and above, and now is the time to take the credit for those investments that have come. Right, but I think the biggest improvement, and you know, I hardly believe I'm saying this, supporting what Mike said, but what Councillor Rosen said was this council has the right tone. All the parties pulling together, everyone having an opportunity to putting in their, you know, what each of the parties wants to get out of this, but it's the stewardship from the leader and the portfolio holder for resources that's given us the bullets to fire. So I'm delighted to support this, the revenue and the capital completely. I think all of us collectively can be proud of what we've achieved here, and I think thanks goes to the officers too, but ultimately we've provided the bullets to fire and everyone is better off as a result.
Thank you very much. Any other comments, please? Yes, Councillor Overton-Neal.
Thank you, Chair. I don't want to repeat too much of other people's comments. I did just really want to say that I am really, really pleased to see that there's some funding that has been allocated for investment in pouring land. These resources will go towards a fitness and wellbeing park that the land is sitting there waiting, and we have plans for it. So this will make a huge difference of getting that moving now. and it'll be a really positive positive impact sort of thing to the village and benefit not just residents of Pouring Land, but other villagers, other residents who tend to come and use our facilities. So thank you, Chair.
We can visit from all over South Norfolk. Anyone else? Yes, Councillor McConnell.
Is this the place to offer an amendment to the 8J Treasury Management Strategy?
It is indeed, yeah.
Okay. We'd all agree, I would like to offer an amendment to the Treasury Management Strategy, Appendix 1, the Treasury Management Policy Statement. We'd all agree that investments, all our investments impact the world and should always be consistent with the Council's mission. Therefore, I'm going to ask that this policy is amended to more firmly and explicitly reflect a will to adhere to investments that are ethical and that have considered human rights, environmental sustainability and social responsibility. That the Council to actively seek more investment opportunities that demonstrate strong environmental, social and governance practices. And this might also prompt the Council to divest of investments in banks that are situated in countries where they may be considered recognised violation of human rights, the investments that may be considered to endorse exploitation and slavery. The current statement states that the Council, in making investments through its Treasury management function, supports the ethos of socially responsible investments. I would ask that this be amended to the Council, in making investments through its Treasury management function, actively subscribes to an ethos of socially responsible investments, that we will always consider the ethical implications, human rights, environmental sustainability, social responsibility of where and with whom our investments are placed, and also that we will actively seek ethically, socially and environmentally responsible new investments.
Can you just let me know which paragraph you are looking at?
It's the page 878 Treasury Management Policy Statement towards the end. It begins, the Council, in making investments through its Treasury Management Statement function, supports the ethos of socially responsible investments, and it kind of goes on, we will actually seek to communicate this support. But I want
the bottom of 868.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can I ask if that's acceptable to the... is there a seconder for that motion? Yeah, Councillor Webber. Is that acceptable to...
Thank you, Chair. I do understand where the councillor is coming from, and this is a matter for each individual. For myself personally, I feel the Treasury Management Strategy does what it needs to do at the moment, and in terms of our current investments, they are geared towards return for our residents and safety of their money. I don't want to be in the world of trying to pass judgment on other regimes in other parts of the world. I don't see that as being my role. So I'm going to respectfully decline the amendment.
Councillor Webber, did you want to speak on this or sum up at the end?
My rights are present.
Okay, anybody else want to talk on this particular topic? Yes, Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Chair. While I'm sure we all appreciate the sentiment of the amendment that's being proposed, I have three grave concerns and therefore can't support it this evening. Firstly, from 25 years experience in working with institutional investors, I'm very familiar that the terminology around ESG and even sustainability itself is constantly shifting. Interpretation of it becomes ever more subjective, and that holds inherent risks for our officers that I don't think we should be opening them up to. As the lady has already clarified, we have a robust Treasury management policy already, and I'm sure our Section 151 officer is constantly reviewing that. And also, we cannot ignore the fact here that we have a fiduciary duty to our residents to ensure that our investments bring back the best possible returns in line with our Treasury management policy that already exists. So in summary, while I respect the sentiment here, I feel this amendment's just unnecessary.
Thank you. Councillor Rosen.
Yeah, I think on, finally finding the correct page, 868 rather than 878, I think it's notable that actually there's a paragraph that covers this already. I think the amendment's unnecessary. I think that our prime duty, as has been said, is to make sure that, as we have just illustrated, we have the resources to meet the needs of South Norfolk residents. And I think that we should be encouraging, as our Treasury Management Policy says, supporting these sorts of socially responsible investments. But I see no need to go further than that in this wording. I particularly object, I will say, to the principle of suggesting any form of divestment. We should be only making our decisions on economic grounds as to what is the best return to the Council, and not getting caught up in what will undoubtedly be disputatious territory about whether a particular country is breaching human rights or not.
Hours of debate to come on the detail of this one. Councillor Fuller.
Only briefly to say that I was the leader during the banking crisis in 2008. And I tell you what, there was a lot of wishful thinking investments that we didn't participate in, but other councils did, and they lost their shares. We stuck to the safe ground. We had strong investment principles based on proper covenant strength. If you can lend money in, you want to get it back at the end. And the rules have served us well. Now, that's not to say we should let rip. As Councillor Rosen said, we already have rules, but those rules have served us well. And now is not the time, particularly as we go into uncharted territories in global economics, to depart from the path we've set out before. Well-meaning stuff, we've got to focus on fiduciary duty, strong covenant, great returns with the appropriate balance of risk. And it is sadly the case that those people who have gone too far down the woke route have taken on too much risk without realising it, and have lost their shirts. And we can't afford to put South Norfolk's wealth, all the returns, all those things at risk in that way. So I think I strongly support the leader on this.
Thank you very much. Does anybody else want to speak on the amendment? Councillor Webber, to sum up probably. Yep.
Thank you for the time. I think Councillor McConnell's amendment is simple and proportionate. I'm delighted to hear Councillor Fuller talk about his reference to the Icelandic banking crash. I agree with his sentiments caused by the chase for yield and the course with unwise investments in countries you don't know enough about. I fully agree with Councillor Thompson. I've also had lots of experience of investment, and I'm well aware that the terminology around ESG investments is forever changing and people are always disagreeing on it. It's not really fair to say that this council is sort of, if you like, territory neutral. If you look at page 878, we've already gone there. We say the following countries, although they meet the minimum required sovereign rating, are not approved for investment. There is only one country, and it's Hong Kong. I don't mind that, but we're not going into new territory here. We have been prepared to make decisions in the past that things weren't appropriate for ESG reasons. I'm not surprised. I did look at the human rights index for some of the countries where we invest. The UK has an index score of 88 out of 100, if you like. Hong Kong has a score of 19 out of 100. UAE and Qatar both have scores of around 35 out of 100. But Councillor McConnell's amendment is not trying to come to any specific decisions now. That would continue to be in the hands of our officers with oversight through FRAG. What she is trying to do is to add a bit of clarity to the things that should be thought about when we think about investing for ESG reasons, in the hope that we make even better informed decisions in future. It's not a radical change, it's simple and proportionate, and that's the reason I'm supporting it.
Thank you very much. Right, just on this amendment then, can I ask the leader to sum up if there's anything more to add?
Nothing more to add, Chair.
Right, well let's just go to a vote on just that amendment. Can I see all those in favour of Councillor McConnell's amendment, please?
Chair.
That's 9, and all those against Councillor McConnell's amendment. (28) and abstentions on that amendment, please. 2. So that amendment falls. Are there any other amendments to the proposals? Councillor Webber. So something different, I hope.
I echo the thoughts that so many have expressed about the competence of our financial management of this organisation and the many great proposals put in the budget and the revenue plans. And of course, the enormous amount of hard work put in by our officers to get us to today's position. However, I do question 2 of the capital expenditure proposals. Firstly, the allocation of £150,000 to In Bloom grants. And secondly, the allocation of £100,000 to parish street cleaning, or street cleaning for parishes, I believe it's called. I've questioned these at previous meetings, and the responses I've had don't particularly satisfy me. I have 3 strong reservations about these awards. How do they really align to our council's priorities? How do they align to the priorities of our towns and villages? And how many of our towns and villages have actually set aside money in their budgets for the match funding that I believe both these grants would require? And to me, they seem to benefit too narrowly our communities. We can do much better, and we can spread our financial resources much more widely. Let me talk about the specific proposal. Overall, this will be essentially revenue neutral and will be in a strong position. The council agrees to increase the proposal is that we increase the members' ward grant from £2,000 per councillor to £5,000 per councillor for 26-27 at a cost of £138,000. And we'll meet this cost by making a reduced transfer to the capital funding earmarked reserve. And for the avoidance of doubt, council agrees that any underspend of members' ward grant for this year be carried forward to the members' ward grant for the 27-28 year. And I have a proposal to amend the capital strategy, and that is that the council agrees the following changes to the capital programme for 26-27. The allocation of £150,000 to the In Bloom fund be set to 0 in order to fund an increase in the member ward grant. And the allocation of £100,000 for street cleaners for parishes be cancelled, and the community facilities grant be increased by £100,000 to £600,000. And obviously the intention would be that any organisation seeking In Bloom funding could perhaps come to members and get it out of the members' ward grant, and indeed anyone needing or thinking of purchasing street cleaners could apply to the community facilities grant. I think it's a very simple amendment. I think it's a non-political amendment. It spreads our financial resources much more widely, much more fairly, and in a way that I think no organisation need lose out. To my eyes at least, this is a win-win proposal. I have had the chance to talk to representatives of a number of towns and parishes inside and outside my ward, and I find universal support. And I think if members, whatever political persuasion, went back to their wards and parishes, they'd get exactly the same response. So I do hope members of all parties can support this amendment.
Is there a seconder for that proposal, please? Councillor Blundell, thank you very much. Does he want to speak? Do you want to speak now or speak later?
Thank you, Chairman. I'll hold my right to the end, please.
Thank you. So we're talking about page 856 of your papers. Councillor Elmer, do you want to accept those proposals?
Thank you, Chair. As I created the provisions, it's not likely I'm going to deprovision them. I will just take the opportunity to respond briefly. First of all, on the overall purpose of it. The overall purpose is to have cleaner, more aesthetic, more biodiverse towns and villages. And I think that feeds directly into protecting the environment and enhancing our communities. So I think it does align with our strategic goals. In terms of the spread of projects, the members' ward grants are very good, and that's why we're doubling them. But they do ultimately only support specific projects at specific times for specific people. Having cleaner streets is a universal gain, and that's why we made the allocation to this. Now, I do accept that not everyone may take up these proposals. I would point out it's not just parish councils that can bid. The idea is it will be distributed £1 per resident, match funded, and it's a parish council or community group. They can come forward to bid for the money, and we will distribute it as far and wide as we can. But the overall purpose is something that we absolutely stand by. So no, I don't accept the amendment.
Thank you. So, are there any other contributions on Councillor Webber's proposal? Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, for myself, I support this proposal. I think if we look at member ward grants, I appreciate it's gone up to £2,000, but a change to £5,000 for member ward grants, yeah, it's significant. But I think if you look, I think every councillor in this room across all South Norfolk could make significant changes in their community with that money at the same time, sort of helping small groups or other sort of like organisations. So I think that the bigger impact on it is something that's felt by every single councillor in this room. I just think it's a better opportunity for people in the groups that we wouldn't normally be able to help, or we've got a smaller amount sort of spread across little options that we have. So for that reason, I support this amendment.
Thank you very much. Anybody else got any comments on Councillor Webber's proposal? Yeah, Councillor Hudson.
It's not an amendment I'll be able to support, and actually up until this point I actually thought that basically we were working as a more collaborative council, and basically, you know, through this whole budget process, you know, both the leaders of the Labour and the Liberal Democrat group have been working very closely with the leader of the council, and something that I've fully supported. I'm a bit disappointed that basically the 11th hour an amendment has come to the table that's not been agreed. So I'll be voting against it.
Councillor Minshall.
Thank you. As a representative of one of the towns that is actually benefiting from the street cleaning, one of the biggest complaints that I receive from tourists and visitors to the town is that the town looks dirty and run down. And if we're going to support tourism, we're going to support visitors coming to our towns and the prosperity for people who run small businesses in that town, we need to make sure that our towns, our market towns, are clean and tidy. And I'm really proud that this is one of the few towns that's actually taken up the offer of this and embraced it with both hands, because making sure that during the season that the town is clean is absolutely vital. And you know, I think that this is something that we should actually be looking at expanding in future years and buying machines for other towns, rather than just walking away from it and saying it's not our problem. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Has anybody else got any comments on this amendment? Councillor Rosen.
Yeah, I wasn't going to comment, but actually Councillor Hudson, I think, has raised a really important point. And that is that we have got an agreed process for group leaders and groups to collaborate in setting the budget. And one of the issues is that we have set ourselves in that to look at using the underspend. If there were other proposals, they could have been put into that overall discussion. And I think that I object in principle to the process we've all agreed and collaborated on, which I think we actually agreed as a council last year, an attempt to sidestep that and make additional changes to the budget as it's been discussed. So I will be voting against it on a point of principle.
Thank you very much. Anybody else got any comments on the proposed amendments to the capital budget? Well, I propose, Councillor Klosky.
Changes are, because I thought it was quite complicated. So
There were two main bits. So we're talking about page 856 of your capital programme, where it talks about the In Bloom Fund has got £150,000 allocated to it, and a couple of lines below that, street cleaners for parishes, 100,000 has been allocated. And the proposal is to remove both of those and put the 150 into the members' award pot and the 100 into the community's facilities grant. So it would give it more flexibility possibly, but be less dedicated to those particular targets. Do you want to just, did I get that right, Councillor Webber? Do you want to read it out again?
I think that was...
I had it broadly correct, I think. It's not very complicated. Councillor Blundell, would you like to sum up on the amendment, please?
Thank you, Chairman. I'll keep this very quick. I just want to thank Daniel and the rest of the team for obviously listening in the first place and obviously taking on board what we said previously. I take on board what Daniel has said about green infrastructure and keeping town and market towns clean and tidy. The first thing a resident will say to me is basically, why are we paying money to volunteers to go out and clean our streets when that is the role of the council? Obviously, you know, it's great giving town and parish councils money to go and buy a couple of brooms or bits and pieces, but that is the role of this council. Yeah, I agree with what Jim has said. Is the members' grant is more flexible. You know, it's great that we've got the In Bloom fund, and I perfectly agree with keeping the environment, you know, planting flowers and bits and pieces. Lots of other organisations have tree funds, and buying a car buys a new tree, and I'm all for that. The issue I've got is it reduces the thing for the smaller councils and kind of aims it at the larger ones because it's match funded. So somewhere like a council that's only got a precept of £2,000 isn't going to budget for a load of flowers and bits and pieces. I would have liked, if this was coming forward, to see it a little bit more open so the smaller parishes could get this money rather than match funding it for more of the larger parishes. I think that would have been maybe a better idea in the long run. Maybe that's something that could be taken on board at a later date, please, Leader.
Is this a combination of revenue and capital proposals then, right? We do need to go to a recorded vote though, if we can take them together, if that's okay. Yes, Councillor Webber.
I'm obviously disappointed in the response. Can I say that I do think there's a certain amount of revisionism. I've been sharing this with officers and no one has suggested that amendments would be unwelcome. It's also been shared quite widely within my own political grouping, although it's not really a political amendment, and there's been no suggestion that it couldn't be tabled at tonight's meeting. So I think if there is an agreement process, it needs to be communicated a little better.
It's an absolutely fair point. You probably need to take it up with your group leader.
And I would also say that I think the...
I think you've probably summarised it. I think Gary probably...
Yeah, I would just welcome and echo Gary's points that this does seem a particularly urban proposal which benefits some communities, not others.
Thanks, Jim. Right, we'll go to a vote now. Yes, Councillor Roberts.
Chair, I'd like to say this because I can hear it behind me, and I don't know whether you can. We're here, we have no other principles to follow. Okay, you're chair of the meeting. There's a lot of comments going on in the background which I can hear. I spend my time as a volunteer to be a councillor. I do not need to hear some of the comments I'm hearing behind. It's not appropriate.
I can't hear those comments. I don't know what they are. They're obviously upsetting, so whoever it is, don't. Right, let's move to a vote. It's a combination of the revenue and capital budgets, but I think we have... Is everybody happy to take them together? Or do you want to do it twice? Do it together.
Chair,
would you like
Chair,
to...
Chair.
Yes.
Yeah,
Councillor,
I think we need
you
to
want to read the amendment again?
No, do we basically just have a vote on the amendment?
Yes, that's what we're going to do. It has to be recorded. But it does have to be recorded because it's the budget. So we'll... A bit of... Yeah, the officers are convinced that it has to be a recorded amendment.
I'd like a recorded vote anyway.
On the amendment. So, can I see all those in favour of
No, recorded vote. I'll read it out.
All right, Claire will read it out and then ask if you're in favour or not of Councillor Webber's proposal.
Thank you. Please can members confirm whether they're voting for, against or abstaining from these amendments. Councillor Bernard? Councillor G. Blundell? Councillor Carstock?
Against.
Councillor Carver? Councillor Cook? Councillor Cork? Councillor Cross?
Against.
Councillor Dewsbury? Sorry? Councillor Eddy? Councillor Elliott? Councillor Elmer? Councillor Evans? Councillor Fowler? Lord Fuller? Councillor Graham? Councillor Hooton? Councillor Hudson? Councillor Kiddie? Councillor Laidlaw? Councillor Mason-Billig? Councillor McCloskey? Councillor McConnell? Councillor Minshaw? Councillor Morland? Councillor Murphy? Councillor Newry-Nixon? Councillor Overton? Councillor Overton-Neal? Councillor Pearl? Councillor Race? Councillor Roberts? Councillor Rosen? Councillor Sachs? Councillor Savage? Councillor Spratt? Councillor D. Thompson? Councillor V. Thompson? Councillor Wateridge? Councillor Webber? Councillor Williscroft?
And the totals are... For is 9 votes, against is 29 and 1 abstention. So that amendment falls. And I think that's it for the amendments on those 3 papers. Yes, I think so. Anybody else want to say anything about any of the budget papers? Treasury management, revenue, capital. Are we done? Do you want to sum up, or we're all there, aren't we?
I don't think I have anything else to say, Chair.
Thank you very much. Right, we're taking one at a time, do we? The revenue budget first.
Yeah.
So all those in favour of the recommendations, yes, I'm just going to read out the recommendations. Paper 8H. So it's the approval of the 26/7 base budget. Subject to council's demand for the collection fund for 26/7 should be £9,881,280, and for the special expenditure £7,540. Band D, council tax be increased by £5 to 180 for the general expenditure, and Band D level of council tax to be 14 pence more for special expenditure. So Claire is going to conduct the recorded vote on that.
Thank you, Chair. Please indicate whether you're voting for, against or abstaining. Councillor Bernard. Councillor G. Blundell. Councillor Carsock. Councillor Carver. Councillor Cook. Councillor Cork. Councillor Cross. Councillor Dewsbury. Councillor Eddy. Councillor Elliott. Councillor Elmer. Councillor Evans. Councillor Fowler. Lord Fuller. Councillor Graham. Councillor Hooton. Councillor Kiddie. Councillor Hudson. Councillor Laidlaw. Councillor Mason-Billig. Councillor McCloskey. Councillor McConnell. Councillor Minshaw. Councillor Morland. Councillor Murphy. Councillor Newry-Nixon. Councillor Overton. Councillor Overton-Neal. Councillor Pearl. Councillor Race. Councillor Roberts. Councillor Rosen. Councillor Sachs. Councillor Savage. Councillor Spratt. Councillor D. Thompson. Councillor V. Thompson. Councillor Wateridge. Councillor Webber. And Councillor Williscroft. Thank you. I think that's unanimous, Chair.
Thank you very much, everybody. It's unanimously passed. The next vote is on the capital strategy and the capital programme, which we've discussed. The programme is, yes, on page revenue budget. Anybody know which page the capital budget starts on?
Recommendations at page 19.
Recommendations on page 19 of the right at the beginning. And the capital strategy is buried in there. It's all mixed up. Okay, page 19 for your recommendations. Can I ask Claire to carry out the recorded vote, please?
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Bernard. Councillor Blundell. Councillor Carsock. Councillor Carver. Councillor Cook. Councillor Cork. Councillor Cross. Councillor Dewsbury. Councillor Eddy. Councillor Elliott. Councillor Elmer. Councillor Evans. Councillor Fowler. Lord Fuller. Councillor Graham. Councillor Hooton. Councillor Hudson. Councillor Kiddy. Councillor Laidlaw. Councillor Mason-Billig. Councillor McCloskey. Councillor McConnell. Councillor Minshaw. Councillor Morland. Councillor Murphy. Councillor Newey-Nixon. Councillor Overton. Councillor Overton-Neil. Councillor Pearl. Councillor Race. Councillor Roberts. Councillor Rosen. Councillor Sachs. Councillor Savage. Councillor Spratt. Councillor D. Thompson. Councillor V. Thompson. Councillor Wateridge. Sorry, is that four? Councillor Webber. And Councillor Williscroft. Thank you, that's unanimous.
Thank you very much, everybody. That's agreed. And then the third recorded vote is the Treasury Management Strategy Statement. We can have a show of hands, right. Can I see all those in favour, please? Thank you very much. Can I see all those against? Nobody? Can I see abstentions? Again, that's unanimous. Thank you very much indeed. Right. The next item is the delivery plan. Again, not just the numbers, but the actions. Page 893 of your papers. Councillor Elliott, can I ask you to introduce this one, please?
Thank you, Chair. The delivery plan sets out the key pieces of work that will drive forward the Council's strategic priorities over the next 2 years. The plan's been updated to reflect emerging priorities such as, for example, the Ketts Park Leisure Centre redevelopment and a clearer breakdown of our environmental and biodiversity programmes into 10 specific strands. I think probably that's all I need to say, Chair.
Lots of exciting activity in that. Has anybody got any questions or comments on the delivery plan? No, exhausted. Well, I think it's exciting. I can't wait to see it all happen. Can I see all those in favour of the delivery plan, please? And all those against? Any abstentions? That's carried. Thank you very much indeed. Which takes us to item 9, which is the council tax resolution. There's a supplementary report on this, which was circulated separately. That's the key thing. Can I ask Councillor Elliott to introduce this one, please?
Thank you again, Chair. I think many people will know that yesterday the County Council agreed their budget, so this paper is delayed until such times as the County Council budget is agreed. I'm not going to go into the detail. I think we've talked about the budget position quite extensively now, and the recommendations, I think, are self-explanatory, so unless anyone has questions.
Note the council tax base, which is in the papers circulated, and the precepts from county and the police. And Claire, can you do the recorded vote for this one, please? No. Does anybody want to? I thought we'd run out of steam. Sorry, apologies. Councillor Roberts.
Sorry, Chair. It's more just I know attached from the budget where this attached to. It's more a well done to all those who've been involved with it from our point of view. As Mayor of Wymondham, I've had to have a meeting where we've had to put effectively pre-set up, which is effectively what's happening through this. But the important thing is showing that we're doing something with the rise, and I think from South Norfolk point of view, we are showing that we're doing something, and I think that's what people want to see when they're paying more for something, that something is actually being done with that money. So I think well done on that as well.
Any other comments? No, thank you. Over to you, Claire.
Councillor Bernard. Councillor G. Blundell. Councillor Carsock. Councillor Carver. Councillor Cook. Councillor Cork. Councillor Cross. Councillor Dewsbury. Councillor Eddy. Councillor Elliott. Councillor Elmer. Councillor Evans. Councillor Fowler. Lord Fuller. Councillor Graham. Councillor Hooton. Councillor Hudson. Councillor Kiddy. Councillor Laidlaw. Councillor Mason-Billig. Councillor McCloskey. Councillor McConnell. Councillor Minshaw. Councillor Morland. Councillor Murphy. Councillor Newey-Nixon. Councillor Overton. Councillor Overton-Neal. Councillor Pearl. Councillor Race. Councillor Roberts. Councillor Rosen. Councillor Sachs. Councillor Savage. Councillor Spratt. Councillor D. Thompson. Councillor V. Thompson. Councillor Wateridge. Councillor Webber. Councillor Williscroft. Thank you, that's unanimous.
Right, thank you very much, everybody. That's unanimous. The budget's sorted. Which takes us to item 10, which is the Monitoring Officer report at page 917 of your papers. Councillor Elmer, can I ask you to take us through this one?
Yes, very briefly, it's a series of appointments, mostly to the shareholder board and its terms of reference, and it also introduces an urgency provision into the Constitution. The reason for the urgency provision is last month we had to have a 2-minute long cabinet meeting to accept a grant of money from Homes England, and we don't really want to be having to do that again. It seems reasonable that I should be able to send an email to check everyone's okay with me accepting money in the future.
Any questions or comments on that report? Thoughts, Councillor Rosen?
Yeah, I wanted to comment on the issues around the shareholders board. I think that, you know, for some time now we've been looking to strengthen the governance of our companies, and I'm really pleased to see this. I did ask a question at the last meeting about this, and thank you for getting a report to this meeting that addresses those issues. I think we've now got a much stronger basis for going forward, particularly during the confusing process which will be our local government reorganisation, and how that will affect our ownership of companies and our use of them to provide services. So I'm pleased to see this. I think it strengthens things. I think it reflects the concern that was expressed right across the council, cross-party, about the situation that we got ourselves into with one of our companies, and I'm pleased to see this included in this document, so thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments on the Monitoring Officer's report? Councillor Webber.
I have a question, really. Can the Monitoring Officer confirm that this will operate as any other committee of this council, with papers being available and members having the right to attend?
I think in our training we learned that the Stakeholders Board will operate rather differently. Anybody want to comment on this one?
Question was to the Monitoring Officer. So.
Yes, I can confirm it will be available for members to attend, but obviously we need to ensure that any of the papers for that meeting are confidential because of the basis of the terms of reference for that meeting. But yes, it is open for any member of the council to attend.
Quickly, Councillor Webber.
And to the avoidance of doubt, because I think the first meeting we weren't advised of the meeting and the papers were not available, which does make it hard to attend. Can you confirm that people will be advised where meetings are and that papers will be available to them through mod.gov?
Yes.
Thank you.
Excellent. Less secrecy, more open information. Any other comments on the Monitoring Officer's report?
Well,
Councillor Fuller.
So I'm the shareholders' representative, and Madam Chairman, you were in the meeting which we had 10 days or so ago now, I think it's really important, and we had an extensive debate about this. I'm just labouring the point because many other members weren't there for reasons Mr. Councillor Webber has laid out. That it's absolutely the case that we're going to be discussing financial private information in a company which the council owns for the public benefit, which contains a third of our capital is allocated to this. Not some of it's buried in bricks and mortar, others in trading. And we agreed amongst all ourselves unanimously that the stuff was to be held confidentially. And I'd be very anxious if the papers were generally set out. I think they should be available to members, but this is not for circulation more widely, nor for publicity, nor for any other purpose, save to ensure that the relationship between the shareholder, and I'm the representative, and collectively we're all shareholders, and the company has the appropriate level of risk, amount of finance and so forth, but it's not to be discussing the operational details. And further to labour the point, and this is my last point, that if the company feels that it wishes to turn the handle again on another development, it's absolutely the decision of council, of the shareholders, that that request from the company will come back to this council for endorsement. So no one's going to get run away and buy a new site or whatever, but confidentiality is really important. There were moments when the economy was running hot, there was a huge demand for housing, some of it's fallen away, where that company generated fully a third of all the council tax this council needed. So it's really important we get it right, and there has to be privacy of the way we discuss that, not because we're hiding stuff away, it's because we want to do best for the people of South Norfolk, whilst also delivering good houses that people want to buy and live in, and recognising also that we are now a significant landlord in the district, having kept many of the homes which we've built over the years.
Thank you very much. I think Councillor Webber probably understands this better than most, having been on FRAG, which was carrying out this function before. And if the papers are circulated through the ModGov app, then you can't forward them or do anything with them because they're locked down. And to the extent that even some people in this chamber, I suspect, haven't read them. Can I put the Monitoring Officer's report to the vote, please? All those in favour? Thank you very much. And all those against? Nobody? Any abstentions? None. Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you very much indeed. Okay. Item number 11 is the pay policy statement. Page 924. Councillor Elliott, please.
Thank you, Chair. This is the annual pay policy statement, statutory requirement for us under the Localism Act. It has to be agreed by council. So the statement sets out our approach to pay for all staff, including senior officers and the lowest paid roles. It provides transparency on pay structures, pay multiples, allowances, pension arrangements, and severance policies. And as I say, it's a requirement that council needs to approve this every year, and this year's version includes updated salary ranges and ensures alignment with existing policy frameworks.
Thank you very much indeed. Has anybody got any questions or comments about this? Councillor Neri Nixon.
Thank you, Chair. At the risk of sounding pedantic, on page 924, where it says purpose of the report, section 38 of the Localism Act introduced in 2012 requires all local authorities to reduce an annual pay policy, just to prove that we do read it. Thank you.
Councillor Savage.
Exactly the same point, Chairman, just to prove that I read it.
Raise all the typos that I saw. Materials recycling facility is not what MRF stands for. Councillor Rosen.
Yeah, I wasn't going to raise that point. I'm fully in favour of adopting this. I'm not going to take up a load of time, but I am slightly concerned about one point, which is paragraph 6.3, equality implications, and the statement that the very nature of the pay policy statement ensures that any inequalities are addressed through the adoption of this statement. which I think is an ambitious claim. I would like in particular to raise the issue of the job evaluation scheme. I understand that the scheme is in Bucon, which I know is used by a lot of local authorities, but we do have nationally some examples of local authorities getting badly caught out by equal pay claims. And what I would be interested to know is whether or not this particular job evaluation scheme has ever resulted in someone using it ending up on the wrong side of an equal pay claim. And that is linked to our policy of exceptionally allowing market rates where posts are difficult to fill. And I think that that is one of the areas where potentially a job evaluation scheme can be bypassed. And I think I would welcome some reassurance, not necessarily now, but maybe as a written report, as to the operation of the job evaluation scheme. I can see it's agreed with trade unions, which is great, but I do think as a councillor I'd like to have a little bit of belt and braces type reassurance, because we do have some spectacular examples around the country of councils that have ended up having to pay millions in equal pay claims.
I will defer to the Managing Director, who I suspect may wish to provide you with a written answer.
Yep. Chair, thank you very much, and a really pertinent question. Just to assure members that equal pay is at the forefront of every grading process, which involves consultation with trade unions on each and every post, or where we're considering market supplements. I will, of course, provide a written reply to you, Councillor Rosen.
Thank you very much. Anything else on the pay policy statement? We agree the recommendations as set out. We approve the pay policy statement in front of you. All those in favour? And all those against? Thank you very much. And any abstentions? That's unanimously agreed. Thank you very much indeed. Right, item 12 on the agenda is questions to chairman and portfolio holders. Does anybody have any questions? No? Yeah. Councillor McConnell.
A question for Councillor Carsock. Would you please tell me when Right Care Right Person will be on the Norfolk Health and Wellbeing agenda, and when we can expect an update on the impact of the introduction of Right Care Right Person on acute mental health patients in the county?
Thank you. We have had the Right Care Right Person on the Health and Wellbeing Board already. I thought I sent it to you, all the papers that went through, but as a result of that, we volunteered ourselves to be the only district representative on the Right Care Right Person Oversight and Implementation Group, which has been formed. So Kerry Gallagher is attending that on our behalf and raising issues on our behalf as well. At the moment, I think they're in a stage of like setting governance and who's doing what sort of thing, but we will report back to you on how that goes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Webber?
Thank you. Question for Councillor over to Neil. I believe the Councillor is well aware that that councillors have had complaints from people with planning applications who find planning officers trespassing over their land. They don't have legal entitlement to do that unless it's an enforcement issue. It came to my attention when one of our officers entered a farm and she didn't realise she was being observed from a distance, went straight through into an avian flu exclusion zone, which obviously creates regulatory risk for the farm and creates risk for the poultry industry in a broader area. I think other councils do have ways of better managing this, either through a code of conduct or through clearer information on the planning application website and on the planning application form itself. My question is, do you agree that there's an urgent need for action, and will you undertake to bring an update to the next meeting of the Planning and Economic Growth Committee?
Thank you. Councillor Neil.
Thank you, Councillor Webber, and thank you for raising this and making me aware that you've had complaints about it. I know that you mentioned it to me earlier today, and you've also spoken to Tracy Lincoln and Phil, and I've spoken to them, and they are going away and having a look at how they can deal with this make any necessary changes, and I'll let you know by email once they've told me we've agreed, come together to sort out how we can resolve this.
Thank you very much. Councillor Hudson.
Firstly, I just want to basically thank the leader and the portfolio holder, Councillor Overton Neil, and the Director of Place and the staff within the planning team for their support over the last 6 or 7 months as we've gone through, which the much publicised, getting a High Court injunction against the King's Head in Fulham St Marian. There was an excellent report last night in Look East.
Which you featured in.
Yeah, which I did feature in. Basically, obviously, I was at the High Court last Wednesday, and I was there as effectively a member of the public. And obviously, we were awarded, or the council was awarded costs, and those costs were quite significant, over £41,000. My question to the leader is that basically, obviously, I hope we're going to look to basically go and reclaim those costs. Given that we were awarded them. And my question is specifically with regard to, will we go after the 21 days, basically and put a charging order, basically on the premises, and then potentially if that charging order isn't successful, then basically forcibly make the owner sell the property to pay his debts.
This is a question for the leader.
I'm going to have to come back to you with a written answer on that at a later date. That's too much detail for me to be able to process at 9 o'clock, I'm afraid.
Thank you very much. Councillor Rosen, you have a question?
Sorry, I don't know whether Councillor Cross was trying to answer something there. Do you want to ask first? Because your hand was up before I was called. I'm happy to give way to Councillor Cross.
Well, she wasn't the next person.
Oh, I'm causing trouble, aren't I?
Councillor Cross.
Thank you, Chair. Just a question for the leader as member for Heatherset Ward, where residents are eagerly anticipating spades in the ground for the surgery. And could he just give me an update on how that's progressing and that it's all on track, please?
Yes, I am delighted to say that we finally have the land, which means, fingers crossed, we'll be seeing spades in the ground in the not too distant future. Just 1 or 2 more regulatory hurdles left to go.
Councillor Blundell.
Thank you, Chairman. There's a question for Councillor Hooton. Also, the Link magazine came out earlier this year, which indicated that food waste collections will be imminent, I believe May. But obviously further details would follow. Do we have an update on actually when they will start and which are the villages that will get it first? Because obviously it'll be a staged thing, I expect, and not all at the same time.
Thank you. Councillor, we did learn a week ago Friday that there was a slight delay on the delivery of the trucks due to the demand across the country. Simon Phelan and Steve Williams, depot manager, went to Terburg in workshop where the vehicles are being manufactured and have looked the people in the eye. We're still awaiting a written confirmation as to the exact date those lorries are going to be delivered to us, and negotiations are still ongoing. We do intend to still have a 3-phase rollout, but the first phase has yet to be determined once we know the delivery date of those lorries. So it's still in the air at the moment. But as I say, we're waiting a written response.
What a surprise. Councillor Wateridge.
Yeah, thank you. I would like to ask the leader, what are your latest thoughts on devolution and LGR, given what happened at Norfolk County Council yesterday and all the various reports in the press that we're reading from you and from others? Thank you.
It's almost like I thought someone might ask me this question today. You will have seen my initial personal follow-up yesterday, which is I have for a long time now been incredibly frustrated with some of the government's decisions on this. I think the process has not been managed in the way it could be. 2 years ago, almost, well, probably not 2 years ago, we began down this process of a paired approach to local government reorganisation and devolution. And I think I can say on a cross-party basis, what we were most excited about was devolution. It was the opportunity for more powers and more investment into Norfolk. We're now in a world where we've discovered that those powers won't come for 2 years down the line, and the bulk of the money won't come for another 2 years down the line. If I'm being entirely truthful, my personal view is that in the year 2028, I'm not entirely convinced the government's priority will be funneling additional money into places like Norfolk and Suffolk at that point. So I have a degree of dubiousness as to whether what we were originally promised will ever materialise. I would urge the government to provide clarification on the back of Norfolk County Council, of what happened at Norfolk County Council yesterday, as soon as possible, and then we can take appropriate steps from there.
Thank you. Councillor Rosen.
I was going to ask a question on a slightly related matter there. I think we're all, people of all parties in this council, I think we share the frustration with the process. On-off elections is really unhelpful to all of us. And I think that I have added concerns about not simply the way the process of decision making has been, but also the manner of communication. And I think that we're at risk of losing the cross-party cooperation. I think we're at risk of this escalating into a very negative climate of discussion. And I would suggest that this council in particular had a really good cross-party approach to looking at the benefits for LGR. And we looked at those options and we came out through a very rigorous process with a 2-unitary proposal model that we put to government, which I hope is being given serious consideration there. And I think the key thing, this cross-party working we do, I think it is key to the trust and confidence that voters can have in our political system. And I don't want to see that damaged, because it's particularly being damaged. You made reference to some parties not currently represented in this chamber, and there are some very divisive approaches being taken by those parties. And I think that it's really important that we, all of us, work in a way that enables us to work together and we try to de-escalate disputes. I'm really conscious, it's not part of something I do, but there is a prayer at the start of every meeting. And I think it's a really well-established Christian principle about turning the other cheek. And I think that's something that we could all learn from, even those of us who do not stand up for the prayer. So I think that I would like, Daniel, I think you probably would agree with me. I think you would agree that we ought to be trying to do what we can to de-escalate conflict about this. We should be expecting better standards of behaviour from our government in terms of how they're making decisions and communicating, so that we have more certainty, because certainty is very important to us. And the clarification needs to come about what's happening when. We didn't end to this way of doing business, because what we actually need to do is restore trust in business being possible between local government and central government. And my concern is that that is something that's been damaged by this particular sequence of events. So I think we've all got parts to play in this. There is a question, yes. Don't worry. It's carefully constructed. It's coming any minute. Yes, I think that we all need to reflect on our behaviours, and we all need to do what we can to contribute to a positive atmosphere of discussion that enables us to do the best for South Norfolk residents. And I'd just like to ask the leader whether he'd agree with me on those points.
I agree with the leader of the Labour group that we must absolutely do right by South Norfolk residents, yes.
Thank you very much. Are there any other questions to the committee chairs and portfolio holders? Councillor Morland.
Let's see if this is working yet. I'm not sure which member it is who deals with the leisure services. Kim. In one of the many pages, it says there's a piece, it says leisure services are an important contributor to public health and general well-being. This applies particularly to children and contribute to large benefit to communities and also a cost saving to the NHS. Can the council and officers please look at ways to protect this important service for the people of South Norfolk by making the whole of the leisure services an asset of community value, if possible, and setting it up as a non-profit making social enterprise, as a future authority could easily see the facility as a cash cow and sell them off to whoever.
Councillor Carson.
Thank you for the question. I think we all agree the leisure service is really important to this council and to the residents of the district. Obviously, everyone here has backed the capital programme and the investments we're making in expanding the leisure service. So I thank you for your concern. We have actually appointed a consultant to look into the future of leisure beyond LGR, if it were to come to that, and how other councils' models operate. So that work is being done. Thank you.
Just add a supplementary to that, Chair. I wish the leisure service was a cash cow.
Quite. And if you redevelop it, are there any other questions? Shall we move on? No? The next questions are to the Chair of the Scrutiny Committee, which in this instance is Councillor Laidlaw. Does anybody have any questions there? The Scrutiny? No? Are there any questions to the Chair of the Licensing Committee? In this instance, Councillor Hooton in the absence of Councillor Easter. Separate out. Are there any questions to the Chair of the Development Management Committee, Councillor Thompson? No, we're exhausted. Well, in which case we note that there's no feedback from outside bodies this time, so I will bring the meeting to a close at 9:15.